Okay, I'm very excited to have on the Goldstein on Gelt show, Lili Vasileff, who is the founder and president of Divorce and Money Matters. They deal with all sorts of financial guidance, but as you can tell from the name of the company, divorce is certainly up there. Lili, I don't actually want to start with divorce. I want to start with discussing the conflicts that couples have and see if we can kind of avoid the divorce side of it, but I'm sure we will get there. What are some of the common money conflicts that you see when a couple comes into you?
Well, I'm glad you're starting at that point because very often I don't think people necessarily want to go to divorce and see it as their only last gasp option because they have conflicts over money. So really going back up the pipeline to say what's preempting and how can you help avoid money conflicts, I think the key factors that give rise to conflicts are going to be avoidance, talking about money, pretty common. Secondly, really a power imbalance. Perhaps somebody's more experienced than the other, more knowledgeable, earning capacity is greater than the other person, and for some reason, it instills a little bit of intimidation in the relationship. And lastly, I'm going to say failing to communicate. Huge, huge point, which is you're bringing together people of different backgrounds, experiences, sets of values, different behaviors, and you're smushing them together in a union, so to speak, that would speak to equality or equitableness and often is just not true. You just don't have the skills there. And it gives rise to a lot of conflict.
I'm going to narrow that all down to one thing, which is the bad communication, because it seems to me as though if people could communicate better, the first two could also be kind of solved up a little bit, including the power/intimidation that I think a lot of people feel. And it may not be on purpose. It just may be that one person naturally takes the position of being more powerful for whatever reason. The other one feels intimidated. Do you have any tools you suggest people do when they realize they're not communicating about money to kind of help them get started?
Well, I think there's a variety of tools, and I think it really speaks to the goal setting of the couple that they want to resolve these conflicts. So one is, to bring in a neutral third party like a coach, a therapist, or a financial expert who's very objective and can sit and translate what's going on in the minds and expectations of each of the parties to the other person. Something as simple as speaking plain English. The second part is to set aside regularly a time to kind of brainstorm as to what you want to do with your finances, how much you want to spend on discretionary items, what the goals are, and to do it in a non-threatening way and on a regular basis so it becomes like a financial date night, so to speak. I think those are really great positive approaches to it.
I like those approaches, and there's certainly things that I recommend to people as well. I think it's difficult, though. Let's go back to your example of a couple that it's a power imbalance. And let's just say, for example, that the husband is the powerful one in this relationship and it's really taking charge. And then I say to him, listen, you've got to sit down with your wife once a month and review the budget and review the investments. And he says, yeah, but she doesn't really know about it and she doesn't even care about it. What do you say when that happens?
Okay, so that is your traditional sort of game set, right? Of where one party is abdicating responsibility or accountability because it's easier to do so, and the other party just assumes that party doesn't want to know anything. Wrong, wrong, wrong. You're in it together. A marriage is an economic partnership. And in one sense, you have to address the fact that you are both equally responsible for your financial well-being. And whether one party's making $1 million and the other one is a stay-at-home parent is irrelevant. You should be in it together. And it speaks also to having some sort of financial responsibility. And trust me, when I see couples going through divorce, it's a long overdue process of where they have failed to make this the priority in a marriage. And honestly, it's a huge challenge, and it's not for the lighthearted. And nobody really likes looking at the bad side of what's going on with finances. So when you approach it from the good side and keep that tone going, it becomes more palatable.
Mm-hmm. We are speaking with Lili Vasileff, who is the head of Divorce and Money Matters, a company which helps people and guides them through one of the most difficult times in life, which is a divorce, and in planning for the future. Lili's been talking to us about a number of the most important things that a couple needs to do in order to avoid the problems. And they start with having good communication and sitting down, having a financial date, and realizing that marriage is an economic partnership. Lili, unfortunately, some partnerships do come to an end. And let's direct the second half of our discussion to that, which is, let's say that you realize you're in a marriage and hopefully not just for money reasons, but for any of a number of reasons, you realize it's going bad and it's going to be time to leave. What are some of the steps a person should take at that point in order to protect him or herself?
Okay, great question. So the idea is you prepare. You prepare. And one of the things that prompted me to write my book on money and divorce was to set forth literally a step-by-step guide from the minute you think you are headed toward divorce all the way through after the divorce. So the idea is you need to really find out what your financial situation is. And many people, surprisingly, are not that on top of it. They're on top of day-to-day stuff or they're on top of the long term, but rarely do you have a comprehensive picture of what it costs you to support your lifestyle, what assets you have, and what debts exist. First and foremost, learn about what the divorce laws are that are relevant to you in your state or your country. Secondly, do homework. You need to prepare yourself financially and have resources for entering into a divorce process.
When you say resources, do you mean squirreling away some money on the side?
I can't ever say that, but I can tell you, you're going to have to find out how you're going to pay for your divorce. Well, you know how people plan for wedding showers and babies, and few people think of divorce in the same way. You got to budget for a divorce. So you need to learn the different legal processes, which you're going to choose, whether it's mediation or collaborative or litigation. You have to find out how you're going to pay for it, what resources are available for you to do so, and to do as much as you can to really prepare yourself to better understand your financial condition so that you kind of leapfrog that whole emotional piece of crying on your attorney's ear.
For thousands of dollars.
Which weighs a lot of money. You know the jokes
Right.
that go along with that. So it's a sad situation when that happens.
So how much time do you think it would take someone just to do that homework, to figure out what the financial situation is, take that snapshot?
Well, you're going to find out and go through your spending. You're going to list all the assets. You have the financial accounts. You're going to get the fair market value of your house, your cars, your collectibles. You're going to look at the debts and what's outstanding. And you start to create your own net worth statement. As long as you're married, you can always open up the mail of your spouse. When it comes to the house, it's not hidden. And you can find out what accounts exist and gather as much as you can while you have the opportunity to do so. The moment that trigger is pulled, I can tell you that that's when suspicions get heightened, people get anxious, they suspect the worst, and that is when information begins to disappear or become unavailable. And then you have to rely on a lot more of the legal process to force disclosure, which is expensive.
So at what point should someone get in touch with a lawyer?
I think when they have a very good understanding of what their financial situation is, when they've made a list of what their priorities are for the outcome of their divorce, what they'd like to do and see as their vision and goals for post-divorce life, and have explored well the different legal options that are available to them, then they're prepared. They enter into the divorce process knowing what the financial phases will look like, what happens, and they've found or interviewed the right professionals.
It's interesting you talk about post-divorce goals, because everything that you and I do in our day jobs as financial advisors is help people to understand their goals and then map it out and then actually develop a strategy for achieving their goals. And this is just yet another goal. It's certainly one that I know must be very difficult for you, because no one wants a marriage to end, certainly in such a difficult situation, but sometimes it leads to that, and people really need to understand how to prepare. I hope that this has been a useful conversation for our listeners, but unfortunately, we are just about out of time. So, Lili, in the last few seconds, tell me, how can people follow you and follow your work?
Great. Thank you for asking. So my book, Money and Divorce, The Essential Roadmap to Mastering Financial Decisions, is on Amazon. It's also on my website, divorceandmoneymatters.com. And I do a number of different educational seminars and events on my website as well. So I welcome anybody to look for my free checklist that you can download to help prepare yourself for the financial future.
Okay, we will put links to all of that at the show notes of today's show at goldsteinongelt.com. Lili Vasileff, thanks so much for taking the time.
My great pleasure. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt Show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Check out all of Doug's money ideas at goldsteinongelt.com. Doug specializes in helping people who live outside the United States handle their U.S. investment accounts. If you have a question that you would like answered on the air or off, contact Doug at his website or send him an email to Doug at profile-financial.com.